What up, though? Alabama Daily News. Sculpture Park aims to look honestly at slavery, honoring those who endured it. March 19th, 2024, by Associated Press. Montgomery, Alabama. Visitors to the Freedom Monument Sculpture Park wind a serpentine path past art pieces depicting the lives of enslaved people in America and historic exhibits, including two cabins where the enslaved lived before arriving at a towering monument. Stretching nearly 4 stories into the sky, the National Monument to Freedom honors the millions of people who endured the brutality of slavery. The monument is inscribed with 122,000 surnames that formerly enslaved people chose for themselves, as documented in the 1870 census after being emancipated at the Civil War's end. So chose these people chose their names, is what is being said here. The monument is inscribed with 122,000 surnames that formerly enslaved people chose for themselves, as documented in the 1870 census after being emancipated at the Civil War's end. So these are the names of people. That's it. Just because these people. So first of all, when census enumerators came around to your people's homes, the census enumerators were foreigners who not only didn't they fully understand English, because they were from different countries and they spoke all different languages. And those people who became enumerators, some of them, because a lot of the foreigners who came here during that time and before, in their own country, in their own homelands, were considered illiterate. Now, these people they spoke German, Italian, Romanian, French, Spanish. So how would they understand American? How would they understand your second and third great grandparents? This is 1870. Let's say your second great grandparents and your second great grand uncles and aunts. How would they understand those people from rural Alabama? They wouldn't, because most of the time they can't understand you today. That's why they have the Urban Dictionary online, to try to understand you better, to try to better understand American. Because you have to understand that these people, they speak more English than American. They learn American from you. Like, when people say, like, when you see them and when you listen to them and they're trying to talk black, they trying to talk like you. They properly trying to talk like the American, the only American there ever was, is, and will be. So when the census enumerators came around to your people's homes, they wrote down what they heard as best as they could. Mind you, they weren't all the king's men. These weren't scholars, okay? Some were quite incompetent. So if one of your people, let's say one of your people, let's say one of my people names was Riri, and they said it the way they said it during that time in Alabama, Riri. The enumerator wrote it down in English as best as they could understand what you were saying. And let's not even talk about the column for race. The column for race said black, white, mulatto. How many of you think that being that when I was a shorty, we didn't call each other black. We called people black when we was riding them. And by riding, I mean talking about them, talking negatively about them. No one ever told me I was black, African American, none of this stuff. As no one especially told my grandmother that she was black, or they said nigga more than they said that they didn't even know nothing about calling each other black. Until, of course, the propaganda came, but my grandmother is before that propaganda. You know, that say it loud, whatnot. So do you honestly think the enumerators, now the enumerators were given instructions. They were the ones asking the questions, filling out the form. Remember, on a lot of the census forms, my people were listed as not being able to read or write, but being able to speak English. They knew how to communicate in English, but it was probably 99, 98% American. So the enumerator, whatever they told the enumerator, they anglicized what your people told them. And they wrote it as best they could. Do you think your people told them, yeah, I'm black? Yeah, yeah, I'm black. Like in one of the census records with with my people. One of the census records with my people, where everyone was mulatto in the house except the patriarch. He's listed as black. And all the other ones that are listed as mulatto on that particular census, 10 years later, or should I say, let's say 20 or 30 years later, they all listed as black. Do you honestly think they said, I'm black, he mulatto, he mulatto? What is mulatto? They ain't know nothing about no mulatto. And if they knew they colors based on the way we see colors today, why would anyone call themselves black when ain't no such thing as a black human or a white human? Well, this idea of black and white that you got is not actually based on colors, because all the people, the Eurasian people, the Afro-Eurasian people, the Caucasians, the Romans, the Anglo-Saxons, when they came here, they had to earn their whiteness. To this day, you know how they earn it? By being patriotic, by being more patriotic than you, by being loyal. Stretching nearly 4 stories into the sky, the National Monument to Freedom honors the millions of people who endured the brutality of slavery. Show me some proof. Millions of peoples who endured the brutality. I want some proof on the brutality. I hear a lot of people talking about the brutality, but I haven't seen it. I don't understand where that's coming from, because in my estimation, a lot of this stuff has to do with trafficking children and women, a practice that is still happening today. Show me the brutality. The monument is inscribed with 122,000 surnames that formerly enslaved people chose for themselves, as documented in the 1870 census after being emancipated at the Civil War's end. So they just got 122,000 people names off the census, chiseled them up on a piece of granite or whatever they said it was made of on the monument. And now it's romantic when you see it. Now it pulls at your heartstrings when you see it. Brian Stevenson, the founder of Equal Justice Initiative, said after opening the first two sites that he felt there was more to do. Most plantation tourist attractions, he said, are centered around the lives of the family that did the enslaving. His goal was a place for visitors to have a really honest experience with the history of slavery. The only thing honest that the visitor that you gon' have is the experience going to that park. Because his story, from the perspective of someone reading his story, is not necessarily an honest experience, especially when you don't know your story. Because when you know your story, you recognize your people in his story. Because in his story, he calls you something else. He called your people something else. Your people ain't who they called themselves in his story. Hence, the need for a census. It was to know where you at, who you is, and where you at. And also how to write you out of your own story. How to write you out of his story. He can't write you out of your story. You just don't learn your story. But that stopped right now. That stopped today. If people found a way to create family and future despite the horrors of that institution, then we can do something comparable in our day to create a future that is less burdened by these histories than I think we've been, Stevenson said. I'm going to be honest with you. I think in 1870 and 1880, I think my people was better off than I am today. You ask why? Because they self-sufficient. They were self-sufficient. They built their own house. They built their own dwelling. They had a water source. They managed their own waste. They lived with nature. They grew their own food. They used fire for heat and for light. You purchase water today. And not only do you purchase water, but you purchase recycled water. You purchase water that's recycled, that's treated with fluoride and chlorine. I mean, demonic don't even describe it. Sad is more appropriate. The 17-acre site is nestled between the twisting banks of the muddy waters of the Alabama River and railroad tracks, the two transportation mechanisms used to bring people to the city slave markets in the 1800s, or what I think, based on what I've read and understanding, is to bring people, women and children, that have been kidnapped and trafficked all over the Americas. From the bottom of Argentina to the top of Canada, encompassing all the islands, of the Americas. That's what I think. That's what it sounds like. And that's what's happening today. Visitors will be able to arrive by boat, essentially tracing the same path taken to deliver the stolen and trafficked people. And we ain't talking about stolen and trafficked people from the place that you term as Africa today. No, that's too easy. That's too easy to sell. That's easy to sell you. If we do the Easter Bunny and Tooth Fairy thing, if we make it about some distant, far off place, no, it was happening right here, just like it's happening today, right under your nose. Kidnapping and trafficking. And listen, it say visitors will be able to arrive by boat, essentially tracing the same path. What if it's such a horrible thing? Why would anyone sign up to want to retrace the steps, the horrible steps of something like that? What type of human being want to do something like that? The park is opening as some politicians, including in the Deep South, try to put parameters on how race and history are taught. And so are you, Stevenson. In classrooms and in workforce training sessions, Stevenson says, such pushback has always accompanied progress. What's progress? It seems to me that all you want to do is keep the lie alive. You're doing a good job. I see this as a kind of desperate act to hold on to the silence and the status quo and the burden of bigotry, which we've copied with for so long. And I just don't believe it will succeed because the truth is powerful, Stevenson said. Yes, the truth is powerful. And because the truth is so powerful, we understand clearly, Mr. Stevenson, that you trying to sell us an illusion. You trying to keep the lie alive. How many of y'all out there? How many of y'all out there is so tired of this? How many of y'all is tired of this whole thing? Listen to what he said. The burden of bigotry. How many of y'all so sick of hearing this bigotry stuff? Why you the most popular human being on the planet, but yet you the most victimized? You the one who you like a child. You like a shorty. You need somebody to take care of you, tell you what to do, give you your thoughts, make you, take from you. The park's centerpieces is the National Monument to Freedom, which bears names from the 1870 census in which formerly enslaved people claimed surnames. Their names was them names before anybody came around asking them what their name was. Hence what the census is for. So they can know who you is and where you at. So when they come, they not going, hey, I got a list of names you can choose. I got a list of names you can choose for your family. You know, y'all being emancipated and all. Y'all don't have to work no more and all, you know. Well, wait. Think about this. Don't you got to get up in the morning and go to work? So what is synonymous with slave, worker, employee, laborer? You getting up in the morning, right? Right? So formerly enslaved or currently? Visitors can walk up, find their family name, and touch it while seeing their own faces reflected in the polished granite. An experience Stevenson himself went through recently as more of the names were inscribed in the stone. I came and I saw my name, and I was surprised by how impacted I was by that, even though I've been planning for 2 years, he said. So Stevenson saw his name chiseled on a piece of granite, and he started crying. Let's shake it. Stevenson said truth and confronting history is the key for America to move forward. Why everybody want America to move forward? See, this is the problem. This is one of the main issues that foreigners have brought over here to us. That the Anglo-Saxon, the Afro-Eurasian, the Caucasian have brought over here to us. They always want to move forward. They ain't happy with just being. Think about it. Today, what do everybody always talking about? Everybody always talking about what they want to get, what they want to do, what they want to accumulate, what they want to accomplish. They're always talking about how ambitious they is. They want to start their own business. They want to do this. They want to do that. They want to fill up every moment of life by doing shit. Yeah, ask you a question. Why would you need to be doing stuff? If you self-sufficient, if all your needs is met, wouldn't you like to be able to just walk through the woods, go to the creek, sit down with some of your favorite people or family members, some of your favorite people, sit there, catch you some fish, and while you still on the shore, cook up your fish and eat it? And then on the way back, pick berries off of the tree. Wouldn't you like to just be able to do that? Wouldn't you like for your children to just be able to go to the creek and get in the creek and have fun all day and play? Because all they needs met. You make your own clothes. Everybody got the same. Everybody got what they hands make, and then they trade with one another. But no, the ambitious foreigner want to come over here and take your stuff and then want you to work for them to sell your stuff to somebody else. For what? This is a picture of Black Renaissance by Raven D. Clark. It's bronze. These statue heads are bronze. 2023, during a media tour of Equal Justice Initiative's New Freedom Monument Sculpture Park, Tuesday, March 12, 2024, in Montgomery, Alabama. These are the statues in Black Renaissance in Montgomery, Alabama. They're in this park. I don't see no natural type hairstyles. You know what people call afros, but they really naturals. I don't see no cornrows, no locks, no wicks. I don't see none of that. Who are these people? A view of the entry during a media tour of Equal Justice Initiative's New Freedom Monument Sculpture Park, Tuesday, March 12, 2024, in Montgomery, Alabama. This is a picture of the entrance where they have these sculptures. Note, the sculpture's name is We Am Very Cold. Am is not a typo for R. So they're saying that they didn't make a mistake. It's not supposed to be "we are very cold." It says the name of the sculpture is "We Am Very Cold." Detail of the sculpture "We Am Very Cold" by who? By Kwame Okoto Bamfo. Bronze 2023 during a media tour of Equal Justice Initiative New Freedom Monument Sculpture Park. Tuesday, March 12, 2024 in Montgomery, Alabama. In all of Montgomery, Alabama, in all of Alabama. Did y'all know somebody in any of y'all bloodlines who name was Kwame Okoto Bamfo? Did you know somebody in school with that name? I didn't. And guess what? We ain't never said "we am very cold." We just say "we cold" or "I'm cold." You cold? See, that's why they do stuff like that, man. See, this is what you call. See, only a foreigner can come up with something like this. Only a foreigner can come up with something like this. Somebody who don't understand nothing about us. We am very cold. We am very cold. Or we cold. Well, I think everybody know we cold. Let's shake it. This is from Wikipedia. Ooh, Wikipedia. I know everybody hates Wikipedia. It's not a real source. Well, it seems to me that sources is words on paper, words on the screen. These words on the screen, they words on paper. We using it all, man. The park includes 170-year-old dwellings from nearby cotton plantations. I know, I'm sorry. I know when y'all hear cotton plantations, y'all think shackles on the wrists, ankles, and neck and waist. Y'all think of that, what we just read. We am cold, boss. We am cold. That's what y'all think of when you think of cotton plantation. Well, a plantation is a place where planting happens. And unlike the garden, your personal garden that you have in your yard, some people had portions of soil where they planted an abundance of things. And guess what? You need help with that. So what you do, you hire somebody. And you ain't high, and they ain't working for you for free. But you know them little what they call shacks, what they show you as shacks and whatnot. I don't think I ever seen the inside of one of them shacks. They may have showed you a little inside of one of them, but they always show you the shacks. They always show you tell you they the slave quarters and whatnot. And you never think to yourself, you working for somebody, and guess what? You work for somebody. See, this wasn't like no, I'm finna get off work. I'm finna go get me something to eat. I'm finna get on the train. I'm finna go here. I'm gonna go there. Nah, this was like, you work for somebody. Boom, they provided on their soil. They're gonna pay you. Sometimes they're gonna do sharecropping. Sometimes they're gonna pay you with a portion of soil to grow your food. Sometimes they're gonna pay you with some acres. They also gonna build you, allow you to build you a house or build you a dwelling on their soil. And please stop thinking that the Anglo-Saxon was the only person who owned a plantation, because they wasn't. Think your people didn't own soil portions where they grew an abundance of stuff? The park includes 170-year-old dwellings from nearby cotton plantations, objects made by enslaved persons, replicas of rail cars and holding pens, and audio recordings of people speaking in the what? in the Muskogee language. We the only Americans there ever was, is, and will be. I'm not saying your people spoke Muskogee language, but look at the next line. The language of the indigenous people of the parks area. We the indigenous people, the only indigenous people, the only Americans there ever was, is, and will be. So what they calling as Muskogee language, see, I don't know what your people called the language they spoke. I don't know if they even called it a language. I don't know if your people even called themselves anything, because I think of it like this. If I'm being left alone, right? What purpose do I have for a book? What purpose do I have for writing something? Now, don't get me wrong. Some of us got talents to where we draw things, and then you'll go out as a shorty. You'll go in the woods. You'll start putting together these materials in order that you can draw on stuff because it naturally comes from you. But what would be the purpose of calling yourself something? Have you ever thought about that? What's the purpose of calling yourself anything? If you living with nature, if you living fully, if you completely self-sufficient, people think they self-sufficient when they make a certain amount of money. When they make a certain amount of fiat currency, they think they self-sufficient. Think you self-sufficient and you got a light bill, a water bill, a mortgage, a car note. You go to the store and buy some clothes. You go to somewhere else and buy clothes. You go to a restaurant and buy food. Go to the grocery store and buy food. You think you're self-sufficient because you could pay for it with fiat currency. The language of the indigenous people of the parks area. The park also includes various sculptures created by Charles Gaines, Allison Sarr, and Kwame Okoto Bamfo, Simone Lee, Wangichi Mutu, Rose B. Simpson, Theaster Gates, Kehinde Wiley, and Hank Willis Thomas. The park opened on March 27, 2024. Stevenson stated to W that the idea was inspired by his 2021 visit to a former slave plantation, his first visit to any plantation. So he's never been to someone's house who had some acres, who planted on those acres, which he felt marginalized the slave experience in favor of the slave owner's mansion's architecture. Does everything have to be so romanticized? Now here we have some of the monuments, some of the statues on in that Freedom Monument Park or whatever. Look at this. What a disgusting piece of propaganda. You got the woman who got her mouth open. She horrified, terrified, chained to a dude. And then she got her baby. The baby got the mouth open, looked like the baby crying. Everybody crying. And they put this in Montgomery, Alabama. They put this in Alabama, man. And he got the nerve to refer to 1870. In 1870, I know what my people was. I got a large amount of people who from a particular county in a couple of counties in Alabama who, let's just say they from Alabama, and they was heavy in Alabama. They was deep. They was so deep it made me, when I'm looking at these records, they so deep it made me think that they running this place. They running this place. The scene wasn't like this. Let's keep going. Oh my God. This is in Alabama, y'all. Look at this picture. This is in Alabama. This what they do to it. This how they want to depict us. Ain't it something about the way these people look, these sculptures? Ain't it something about them that, yeah, you know people who look like this, but they ain't you, right? Something about them that just, it's just not you. I don't know what it is. These just don't look like Americans, you know? They don't look like our people. They don't look like my people, man. They, they look similarities, but they don't look like our people. You know what I think it is? I think it's the being on the knees part that just we can't relate to. That I can't relate to. I just looks foreign to me. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Here we go. They remember that they talked about the names from the 1870 census. They talking about the time right after, quote, emancipation, end quote. And what do they have here? They look, this aged well. Hands up, don't shoot, right? And look at this picture. Oh my God. Oh my God, man. Oh no, man. Oh man. Man, they got a confident homie is confident. They got and look at the woman in the background, man. This is crazy. This is crazy, man. This is crazy. He like, I'm not working. I know work. I know work. Me no work. We am cold. I don't know, man. It's something about it just don't strike me as an American, man. It's just don't look like an American. I don't know what it is. I can't really even say. But it's diabolical. And it's bogus that they put that in Alabama, man. They bogus. They need to be dealt with. HMDB.org, the Historical Marker Database. The American Midwest, Upper Plains, the making and meaning of dignity. We talking, we saw them statues. That's what that was about, man. Statues. They got statues in Alabama that's disgusting, despicable, and ain't none of your people. October 15, 2021. The making and meaning of dignity marker. Norm and Unibel McKee of Rapid City, South Dakota, announced their gift of dignity to the state of South Dakota in 2014 in honor of the 125th anniversary of South Dakota statehood. When y'all think of South Dakota, what do y'all think of? When I think of South Dakota, it's almost like I'm thinking about like another country, which in essence it was. It was part of another country. I mean, they got the lines on the map today that separate estates, but essentially, America was, I guess considered different countries. But when we're talking about our people, again, when you're living with nature, you're not thinking what's 300 miles away from you. You're thinking about the tree that's in front of you. You're thinking about your people that are in front of you. You watching your children as they run around out there. You making sure they straight. In honor of the 125th anniversary of South Dakota statehood. So this is Norm and Unibel McKee of Rapid City, South Dakota, announced their gift of dignity to the state of South Dakota in 2014. These two people, this man and woman, is giving a gift to South Dakota in honor of the 125th anniversary of South Dakota. These must be prominent people, and these are well-off people. If they're going to donate something, this is what people do when they spend their whole lives toiling and working and laboring and slaving. You get to a point where, you have everything you want. So you want to do something that means something, that's meaningful. You want to give back. You want to give back to the place that's giving you everything, America. You want to give America something because you're a foreigner. You're not in your ancestral homelands. And remember that your soil portion that you sprouted up from needs you, and you need it. They're on a different soil portion. They're in America. And remember, we know they're foreigners because who's the American? Who was the only American there ever was, is, and will be? Me, you, our people. You know, the people who they term as black Americans, African Americans, not so much African Americans. People really ain't with the whole African American thing. But, people have a really deep, intimate relationship with the word black. But it's properly American Indians, the only Americans. The statue was erected in September 2016 at this site where it overlooks the Missouri River. The Missouri River. The statue overlooks the Missouri River. Now, remember, it said Norm and Unibel, they gave this statue, the statue that we're going to see, they gave this statue as a gift to the state of South Dakota. Okay, this right here, and it's overlooking the Missouri River. This is Unibel McKee right here. Unibel Faye McKee, 84. This is them speaking of her passing away. Was born December 10th, 1934 to Herman and Lillian Winterfield Vogel in Pipestone, Minnesota. She married Norman Charles McKee in Pipestone, Minnesota. They moved to California for 5 years before relocating to Sturgis in 1966, where she worked for the Veterans Administration at Fort Meade. In 1978, they moved to Rapid City. They became involved members of the community. She was a member of Trinity Lutheran Church for 38 years, where she was active in Circle, Altar Guild, and mission trips to the Rosebud Reservation. Unibel was a 50-year member of Beta Sigma Phi, where she held all offices and won Sweetheart, Woman of the Year, Order of the Rose, Silver Circle, and the Master Degree. Okay? So you get an idea of what we're talking about. You can look up all her associations on your own time. Sounds like interesting stuff. Pretty sure you've heard of some of those. Unibel McKee, her and her husband, gifted South Dakota with the statue that we're going to see that follows. Okay. Let's get into it. This is dignity. This is the marker for dignity. Dignity of earth and sky. Standing at a crossroads. Remember, the statue is overlooking the Missouri River. Standing at a crossroads, dignity echoes the interaction of earth, sky, and people. She brings to light the beauty and promise of the indigenous peoples and cultures that still thrive on this land. My intent is to have the sculpture stand as an enduring symbol of our shared belief that all here are sacred and in a sacred place. A gift to the people of South Dakota from the Norm and Unibel McKee family, sculptor and South Dakota artist laureate Dale Claude Lamphere. So Dale Claude Lamphere is the one who's tasked with building the sculpture or sculpting. Received by Governor Dennis Daugaard, dedicated September 17th, 2016. So as we can see, the McKees, Norm and Unibel McKee, they were accomplished people. And I'm guessing if they're going to put their money behind something and they're going to give a gift of this magnitude, they want to be as accurate as possible in its depiction. It's the statue. I think they would want this statue to represent their intentions fully and completely. Pretty sure they chose sculptor and South Dakota artist laureate Dale Claude Lamphere for a good reason. The statue measures 50 feet high, 16 feet deep, and 32 feet wide. The star quilt held by the woman has more than 100 blue diamond shapes that move in the wind like an aspen leaf. The statue boldly proclaims that South Dakota's native cultures are alive, standing with dignity. And I know the minute they say native culture, South Dakota, the minute they say South Dakota, native, I know you immediately think that Anglo-Saxon, Chino-Roman type of human being that we've seen for years and years, with the two braids on the side, sometimes looking more Anglo-Saxon than Chino, or sometimes more Chino than Roman, sometimes more Siberian than anything. But you have to remember, again, the American Indian, your people, you, me, are the only Americans there ever were, are, and will be. And guess what? We ain't the only ones that know that. A lot of us don't know. A lot of us are finding out. But there are a lot of people who know. Foreigners. There are a lot of foreigners who know. Marker is near Chamberlain, South Dakota in Brule County. It can be reached from US 90 at milepost 263. I will be going and standing next to this statue because I think it's a beautiful statue. This is Dignity of Earth and Sky in South Dakota, overlooking the Missouri River. Y'all know where Missouri at, right? Y'all familiar with Missouri? A lot of your people come from Missouri, right? St. Louis? Yeah? Yep. Dignity of Earth and Sky. That's in the daytime. Beautiful statue. That's in the daytime. Here is another angle. And as you can see, it says it's 50 feet tall, I guess, right? I can't wait to go see this. It's amazing. This is the sculptor, Dale Claude Lamphere, the artist. Over his 51-year career, Dale Claude Lamphere has completed 60 major public sculptures, from the Basilica of the National Shrine in Washington, D.C., to the city of Burbank, California. This is Dale Lamphere right here. He shaved the mustache off. He kind of looks like one of the chiefs of the five civilized tribes, right? Here we go. Western culture, native life, epic stories, cowboys and Indians. How many of y'all know that y'all was the cowboy and the Indian? They never said that, right? South Dakota's Dignity of Earth and Sky by Lance Nixon, January 27, 2024. Dale Claude Lamphere's tribute to Native peoples also celebrates the beauty of the Great Plains. She stands with her back to the wind and her face to the morning sun, and the diamonds in the star quilt she has wrapped around her shine like pieces of the night sky. She is Dignity of Earth and Sky, sculptor Dale Claude Lamphere's celebration of Dakota and Lakota women in the plains world they inhabit. He says, a gentleman came to me and wanted to do something to acknowledge the native nations we have here in South Dakota, says Lamphere, who has a studio at the edge of the Black Hills near Sturgis, South Dakota. He wanted it to be a native and a woman. Beyond that, there were no instructions. This is when he says a gentleman, he means the McKees. And he says, his instructions were he wanted it to be native and a woman. Now, Lamphere, he used a few of the, quote, native women, end quote, to help him kind of get an idea of how he was going to shape up this sculpture of this woman, of this native woman, this, this imaginary native woman. But believe this, with him being a laureate, with this guy being as accomplished as he was, as well as the people who commissioned him to do it, believe me, he wanted to be as accurate as he possibly could to this soil. You know why? You know why him as the artist and the McKees as the people who are giving this statue to America, specifically South Dakota portion, soil portion, overlooking the Missouri River near Chamberlain. You better believe that they understood that this statue would still stand long after they no longer were here. So it has to be accurate. It has to be as close to realistic as possible for them, because they want future generations to understand who this woman is. That's a picture of Dignity. Lamphere, who is white, no such thing as a white person, but I guess he's considered, his status is white. He's Anglo-Saxon, and more Anglo-Saxon than most, I must say, from looking at him. Lamphere, who is white, was hesitant. Appointed South Dakota Artist Laureate in 2015, a post formerly held by the late great Dakota artist Oscar Howe. He has been criticized when he has occasionally done pieces that feature Native people. I wonder why. He ended up using 3 Native women for models, one in her 50s, one at the threshold of her 30s, and one a teenager. I didn't want to represent any one Native person, but rather distill the essential characteristics and elements of their countenance and movement, Lamphere says. I've received more positive feedback on this sculpture than on any other work, he says, and that includes an audience he's particularly eager to please. I've been fortunate that it's been very well received by Native communities. I've heard it referred to as the Statue of Liberty for Native people. Now, I'm not sure which Native communities he's speaking of. He didn't list any Native communities. He didn't list any specific people who gave him praise or feedback. I don't see any pictures of those people. I have no idea who those people are. Zsolt Fekete, a native of Hungary who worked for a time as a researcher at South Dakota State University, saw the dignity sculpture when he visited the state in 2018. Fekete says, when we stopped, it was near to evening time. On this robe that she was wearing, it says, when we stopped, it was near evening time, Fekete says. It was a late sunset, and the colors were amazing on this robe that she was wearing, she being Dignity, the statue. Noting South Dakota's history of conflict with Native Americans. I'm not sure what they mean. Noting South Dakota is the soil. They call the soil South Dakota, or actually the governing body conflict with Native Americans. Okay, let's get it together. Noting the South Dakota's history of conflict with Native Americans, or the governing body's conflict, I guess, with Native Americans. I don't know why, they were probably one and the same. For Lampier's part, a non-native artist can only try to grapple with the West's history of conflict, the kind of oppression that the native communities have felt over the decades. It's been a very difficult thing, he says. I don't think we as white people really understand the generational trauma they've gone through. I try to be empathetic to that. Something that is very intriguing to me is sometimes I don't know when they're speaking of natives and native communities. Sometimes I'm just not sure who they're speaking of. Because he says the kind of oppression that the native communities have felt over the decades. I'm not sure what he's speaking of because the native communities have always been taken care of by the U.S. government. I have shows on this channel where I go over some of the benefits that so-called native people, or the people who term themselves Native Americans, some of the benefits that they get for being so-called Native Americans. So when he says the kind of oppression that Native communities have felt over the decades, he says, I don't think we as white people really understand the generational trauma they've gone through. I try to be empathetic to that. It almost makes me think he's not actually speaking about the people who everyone thinks he's speaking about. I mean, he is an artist, right? Though there are parts of the piece he might have liked to work on longer, Lamphere believes Dignity succeeded in ways that are not solely to do with the artist. He says, in a sense, I try to get out of the way. Right. Remember, he's in America. Remember the soil, the electricity in the soil. Remember, it comes up through your legs. Okay? Take your shoes and your socks off. Walk on that clay dirt, and it come up through your legs. There's nothing you can do about it. Regardless of what he was trying to do, he did what he was supposed to do. He did what he could only do. In a sense, I try to get out of the way. I try to be a human mechanism to make the sculpture manifest itself. Exactly. I'm sure some of you who are writers feel that same thing, that the words are coming from, you're a vessel for those words. The words come through you, you write them down. If it's a human form, I try to enter into the spirit of what I'm trying to create. And think about it, he's in America. For Lamphere, the best creative activity is when the artist just becomes a conduit for something that needs to be said, something that wants to come out. My intent, Lamphere says, is for the sculpture to stand as an enduring symbol of our shared belief that all here are sacred and in a sacred place. Dignity of Earth and Sky statue looks to further its cause, by Austin Gloss. It says, Chamberlain, South Dakota. This is December 23rd, 2020. Austin Goss, or I believe that's what his name is. Chamberlain, South Dakota. The Dignity of Earth and Sky statue is one of South Dakota's most important and recognizable monuments. Now, the men and women behind the creation wants to make sure its legacy and what it stands for continues to grow. We want it to slowly and thoughtfully develop a revenue stream that can help improve the site, said Dignity sculptor Dale Lamphere, and also assist the Native communities throughout the state in their creative efforts. Read that and try to get a meaning out of that. I'm not going to stay on that, but definitely something to unpack there. Our objective is to help build a large online market for local and native made quilts, jewelry, and art. Future ideas include creating an annual spring quilt buyers market, an event held for retail outlets and individuals to appreciate and purchase quilts, jewelry, and art, Murphy said. Janine Wingert and her store, Simply Home Boutique in Chamberlain, were one of the first involved in selling merchandise directly affiliated with the Dignity Initiative. So now it appears that Dignity, that they're going to try to use Dignity in order to bring this community out of squalor. It appears they are turning this into another initiative by the governing body to help the people of that place build up the town or something like that, something similar. Like they do in other places, you know, sometimes they put a Walmart, or a place needs a Walmart, or I don't know, what is it, a gas station, you know, anything to bring some revenue, a factory. It represents Chamberlain well because Chamberlain is Native American, Wingert said. It is just a beautiful representation of the people that lived here and still do. Well, from what I've seen of, let's move on. They said it represents Chamberlain because Chamberlain is Native American. I'm not sure what that even means. Chamberlain is Native American. Chamberlain being the place. Native American being this particular group of people. Chamberlain is Native American. I don't understand that. because Chamberlain represents the place, the soil. The soil was always the soil. How can the soil be Native American when Native American is a new term? It's a new type of people. It is just a beautiful representation of the people that lived here and still do. The Dignity Initiative is telling people not just to look out for those improvements to merchandise. Wait. The Dignity Initiative is telling people not just to look out for those improvements to merchandise, but also to improvements around the statue in the near future as well. One of those improvements includes plans to install permanent educational interpretive panels at the site, providing information about the Lakota and Dakota peoples and culture. Oh, so they want to educate you some more. They want to educate you, educate everybody who comes around. They want to indoctrinate you. They want to educate, nurture, nourish you. They want to give you your thoughts. They want to tell you what to think about what your eyes are seeing before you come up with your own perspective. This is from, I guess, a blog called Hyperallergic. Who gets to honor Native women in the U.S.? Dignity of Earth and Sky, unveiled in 2016, raises questions about who should depict Native peoples and how they should be portrayed. Someone has an issue with how Lamphere portrayed the, quote, Native peoples, end quote. Mind you, he said he used 3 Native females in order to get an idea of how he wanted to approach this project. However, he did say he is a conduit for what the spirit of this place makes his hands create. Taylor Michael, February 7th, 2023. Dignity statue right there. Yeah, we see the 2 braids, but that woman ain't looking like none of the natives I seen before. Right? We're going to go a little closer to it. On a bluff near I-90 in Chamberlain, South Dakota, Dignity of Earth and Sky towers over the Missouri River. Speaking of Missouri, let's just look at Missouri. Missouri is a, I got people in Missouri. Got some people in Missouri. I got some people in, we got people in Missouri. Missouri is a popular homeland for a lot of our people. So this is from, let's cut to Library of Congress, French Woman and Feminist in History, a resource guide. This is Josephine Baker. Y'all heard of Josephine Baker before? Josephine Baker. Born in St. Louis, Missouri. Josephine Baker, 1906. She was born in St. Louis, Missouri. Would go on to become one of the first African American women celebrities in France and in Europe. Falsely called here African American. No such thing as an African American baby in 1906. This is an American Indian woman, Josephine Baker. Okay. Just like Dignity of Earth and Sky, who towers over the Missouri River. Coinky dink coincidence? I think not. Josephine Baker, born 1906, St. Louis, Missouri, would go on to become one of the first American Indian women celebrities in France and Europe. Josephine began performing with the traveling African American Theater Group at the age of 15, or American Indian Theater Group at the age of 15. She married at this time. She got married at 15 and continued to perform in vaudeville shows, eventually securing a place on the chorus line of an off Broadway show in New York City. New York. New York. She got married at 15. I have relatives in my bloodline, women who were married at 15. One in particular was married at what was it? 16, and she married, and her husband who she married was 25. Today, people in America, women in America, men in America can't fathom a 25-year-old marrying a 16-year-old. They couldn't fathom young Josephine at 15 marrying somebody. They couldn't fathom it. She married at this time and continued to perform in vaudeville. She was married and she was performing in vaudeville shows, eventually securing a place on the chorus line of an off-Broadway show in New York City. Becoming a well-known performer in New York's black art scene, now known as the Harlem Renaissance. See, they starting with the black. She divorced in 1925, it says. So she got married at 15. She divorced in 1925. Young Josephine getting divorces and whatnot. You would think a woman who's married at 15 would stay married to that man for let's move on. Baker became a uniquely French celebrity in that her success was recognized nearly exclusively in France and Europe and never reached an equivalent level in the United States. Remember, she was born in 1906. I don't know what you heard about 1906 or 1900, but listen to what I'm saying. Listen to what we're going through right now. At the outbreak of World War II and the Nazi occupation of France, Baker became a member of the French resistance movement, performing for and socializing with members of the German military. Baker used her celebrity to gain confidential information about Nazi strategy and passed this back to the Duxembourg, the French counterintelligence unit. Her status as a traveling performer provided cover for her travel to the United Kingdom, where she carried notes about German military operations written in invisible ink on her sheet music. Now, by no means should you take this at face value, what I'm reading about Josephine Baker. Don't take it at face value. You know it's always something a little bit deeper. Most things ain't how they seem. All this can just be an illusion. Baker was an outspoken activist in the American Civil Rights Movement, appearing at demonstrations in Washington, most notably alongside Martin Luther King Jr. at the 1963 March on Washington. Okay, Paris and beyond. Paris Plus, inside informative travel info across the globe. The remarkable life of Josephine Baker. You see her. You see the picture. Iconic entertainer of the jazz age, famous for her risque performances. Josephine Baker's extraordinary story. Josephine Baker was an American Indian hot potato. Know what I mean? She was feeling herself. She was a force to be reckoned with, whether fighting racism in her native America, or spying on top Nazis. She was a force to be reckoned with, whether fighting racism in her native America. Native America, Native American, Native America. I'm just saying this. I'm just messing around. She has now been honored in the Pantheon, Paris. Josephine Baker was born in 1906 in St. Louis, Missouri, the same place that has a river of the same name. The Missouri River, of which Dignity of Earth and Sky looks over. Her parents were both entertainers who performed throughout the Midwest, often bringing her on stage during their shows, kind of like Beyonce do with a child or children. I mean, if they're her children. By the age of 8, young Josephine was forced to take any odd job she could manage to find. By the age of 8, young Josephine was forced to take any odd job she could manage to find. Now, we need more details on this. Forced to take any odd jobs. We need more details on that. They just throw out stuff like that in articles. By the age of 8, young Josephine was forced to take any odd job she could manage to find. Josephine, 8 years old. Well, you know, when I was 8, I worked a job or two when I was 8 just to make me some extra money. I don't know if I was 8. I think I was like 10, maybe 11. This is a picture of her. It says Josephine was born into poverty in St. Louis, Missouri. But it also says that they said she was born into poverty. It says her parents were both entertainers who performed throughout the Midwest, often bringing her on stage during their shows. Then it says Josephine was born into poverty in St. Louis, Missouri. Next, they're going to tell us that her father and mother were slaves, right? Sheesh. They got to make up their mind, man. What it's going to be? Either she in poverty or she with her parents on stage at the concert. By the age of 15, she had already been married twice and was working full time as a domestic servant. You hear that? It says she was working full time as a domestic servant. She wasn't slaving full time, right? Well, slave, worker, employee. By the age of 15, she had already been married twice and was working full time as a domestic servant. She was working as a domestic servant because she was skilled at that. Already married twice at 15 is that is savage. She was a different breed of woman, man. In a speech many years later, she recalled watching the glow of burning Negro homes lighting the sky. More context, please. By the age of 12, she was no longer able to go to school, having instead to find work wherever she could. When she couldn't obtain work, she lived as a street child in the slums of St. Louis, sleeping in cardboard box shelters. She often danced on street corners collecting money from onlookers, and eventually found work with the street performance group called the Jones Family Band. She married at the age of 13 Willie Wells. However, the marriage lasted less than a year. She struggled to have a good relationship with her mother, who had tried in vain to prevent her becoming an entertainer. So her mother didn't have no control over her, man, when she was 8 years old when nobody could control her, man. This is a wild Indian right here, man. Nobody can control her, man. She 8 years old. She 13 years old getting married, man. And it don't seem like to me that she was forced to be married, man. However, the marriage lasted less than 1 year. She struggled to have a good relationship with her mother, who had tried in vain to prevent her becoming an entertainer. By the age of 15, Josephine had married her second husband, William Baker. She left him when a talent scout invited her to join a vaudeville troupe that was booked into a New York City venue. Look, she left her second husband, man, because she got a good gig, man. She had ambitions, man. She left her second husband. She's 15 leaving people, man. Come on, stop, y'all. Whoever's watching, you gotta stop acting like you wasn't 15 before. What did you do when you was 15? What kind of stuff did you do when you was 15? Did you have a boyfriend or a girlfriend? Was you messing with somebody at 15? What was you doing at 15? What is your children doing at 15 today? You better go check on them. She left him when a talent scout invited her to join a vaudeville troupe. How many talent scouts is scouting 15-year-olds today? Go turn on YouTube after you finish watching this show. Let's shake it. She left him when a talent scout invited her to join a vaudeville troupe that was booked into a New York City venue. She divorced Baker in 1925, but kept his surname. She kept his surname. New York in the 1920s saw the rise of the African American, properly the American Indian cultural movement, referred to at the time as the New Negro movement. Well, they tried to turn it into the New Negro movement by bringing in some foreigners who look like you, probably, right? They brought in some foreigners who look like you and tried to and turned you into a Negro. You see it? It says New York in the 1920s saw the rise of the African American, which it didn't exist. African American, no one was calling themselves African Americans. No one was known as an African American in 1920s. Cultural movement referred to at the time it was referred to. So they're saying they're calling you an African American today. Whoever reading this article, they calling me an African American, but they saying at the time it wasn't African American. It was the New Negro movement. They done turned you into a Negro. No more Native Missourian or Native America, like, Josephine Baker. You know what I mean? That native to Missouri and all that. No more of that. You the New Negro movement now. So, same thing that's happening today. Bring in some foreigners who kind of look like your cousin. But nowadays, as the Harlem Renaissance, which was an intellectual and cultural revival of African American music, or of nigger music who was already here, of indigenous music, dance, art, fashion, literature, theater, and politics, is somebody else's foreigners coming in trying to take your stuff the same way they doing today and inserting themselves into what you made, into what you known for, into your talents, monopolizing and capitalizing off of your talents. Josephine performed at the Plantation Club and in the chorus lines of groundbreaking and hugely successful Broadway reviews such as Shuffle Along, The Chocolate Dandies, and The Dixie Steppers. Josephine in this picture right here, it's a really small picture. She's a second from right as one of the Dixie Steppers. They fresh too. At the time, she was billed as the highest paid chorus girl in vaudeville, and this led to an offer to join a troupe heading to Paris for a tour. France would become her home until her final days. In this picture, it says Josephine on tour with La Revue Negre. La Revue Negre. At the age of 19, Josephine Baker had already been married like three times or something like that. At the age of 19 to become a headline act. And now you got people, now you got, I'm hearing, I don't know, now you got, I hear women, you know, saying that, they want to, build up or kind of focus on their education and their careers, and then maybe get married sometimes maybe in their early 30s or something like that. But Josephine Baker, man, by 19 she been married three times. Sheesh. At the age of 19 to become a headline act, Josephine opened in La Revue Negre on October 2nd, 1925, at the Theatre des Champs-Élysées, a white producer's attempt to bring authentic Black American culture to Europe, authentic American Indian culture to Europe. Josephine was immediately enthralled by Paris. This freedom amused me. In the theaters, women could show themselves without clothing. I could not believe it, so I bought dozens of pictures of nude women. Josephine Baker. Same as it ever was. She later recalled, "Oh, what an intoxication to dance in the sun with practically nothing on. The Charleston should be danced with necklaces of shells wriggling on the skin and making a dry music. It is a way of dancing with your hips. We hide the buttocks too much. They exist. I don't see what reproach should be offered for them." For her, the skimpy costume she now wore represented not shame and scandal, but freedom from the oppressive culture which had persecuted her. Which culture was that, Josephine? It seems to me that you've been in control. You've been making your own moves since you was 8. Ain't nobody been in control of you. She broke her contract and returned to Paris in 1926. Within a year of her arrival, she had thrilled audiences with her madcap Charleston and performed a wild dance in a costume consisting only of a crystal body mesh with a tail of pink flamingo feathers. Sheesh. I bet that was fresh. Yeah, I know. Now don't pause the show right now. Everybody gonna go quickly look up, try to find a video of Josephine Baker performance with the costume of crystal body mesh with a tail of pink flamingo feathers. Ew. She was often accompanied on stage by her pet cheetah, Chiquita. Very soon, Josephine was the highest paid entertainer in Europe. Hemingway called her the most sensational woman anyone ever saw. He spent hours talking with her in Paris bars. Does this sound, listen, man, what did y'all think about, what you think about your people now? What do you think about the early 1900s now? 1920s. Unlearn everything you ever learned. Very soon, Josephine was the highest paid entertainer in Europe. Hemingway called her the most sensational woman anyone ever saw. Hemingway was shooting his shot. Hemingway was flirting. He spent hours talking with her in bars. in her in Paris bars. He probably did more than flirt. Picasso drew and made sketches and paintings depicting her alluring beauty. See, people all over have always revered the Americans. Just like today, same as it ever was. This is a picture of Picasso painted Josephine numerous times. This acceptance was unique to France. On a 1928 tour, when she stepped outside the comfort zone of Paris and entered the largely Hitler supported territory of Vienna, she was met with boos and cries of Black Devil. She returned briefly to New York with the show Ziegfeld Follies in 1936. Time magazine, in reviewing the Ziegfeld Follies, referred to her as just a Negro wench. Heartbroken, she returned to France for good, where she became a legal French citizen and gave up her American citizenship. Slow down, y'all. Slow down. She gave up her American citizenship. She's still all American Indian. Don't forget it. Don't forget it. In 1940, Jacques Apty, head of French counter-military intelligence, the Deuxième Bureau, proposed a risky espionage role in the resistance to her, and Josephine didn't need to be asked twice. France had offered her unconditional acceptance at a time when her own country and others in Europe had literally and metaphorically spat in her face. She simply replied to Apty that, you know what, I'm thinking it was probably her people in America who had issues with what she was doing. I mean, she had a crystal mesh outfit on, man. She was naked, man, dancing, man. I mean, she was married 3 times by the time she was 15. Twice by the time she was 13, I think it said, or 15. She was married twice. Come on, man. I think it was her people who had an issue with some of the things she was doing. Had literally and metaphorically spat in her face. She simply replied to Apty that the Parisians gave me their hearts, and I am ready, Captain, to give them my life. You can use me as you wish. She was given the rank of lieutenant in the Free French Air Force. She socialized with high-ranking officials at glitzy galas and parties. Are they romanticizing this instead of just calling her blank? She socialized with high-ranking officials at glitzy galas and parties at enemy embassies and performed for German soldiers, reporting to Apty everything she saw. And I'm starting to think Josephine is a blank. As an exotic foreigner with an American accent. Oh, here we go, baby. As an exotic foreigner. So, in France, in Paris, they think y'all sisters is exotic. And they acknowledged American accent. They acknowledged the way we talk. Yeah. They didn't say an English accent, right? They said American. Listen to the words coming out their mouth. Josephine tricked her targets into thinking she was innocuous. Let's read that one more time. As an exotic foreigner with an American accent, or as an exotic American with an American accent, as an exotic American speaking American, Josephine tricked her targets into thinking she was innocuous and politically neutral. making it her mission to charm information out of every Italian, Japanese, or German official or military officer. She discovered the secret locations of troops and airfields, passing on details to help outwit the enemy. While enthralled by her considerable charms, they would scarcely have imagined her sheet music was covered in the secrets she discovered, noted down in invisible ink. In this picture, it says, with the commandant of the Women's Free French Air Force in 1944 is Josephine Baker on the right. As she traveled, she also carried secret messages about troop concentrations and movements, secret airfields and harbors usually hidden in her underwear, but also written along her arms and on the palm of her hands. She used her stardom and celebrity status to avoid being searched and to move freely around occupied Europe. One of her many deceptions was that she publicly supported Mussolini's invasion of Ethiopia. It was the perfect cover for a spy. The vital intelligence she gained also allowed her to pass on information about those who were working for the Nazis in occupied France or any infiltrators in the French resistance. As well, she sometimes managed to smuggle secret photos of German military installations out of enemy territory. Wow. Josephine Baker was busy. By this time, she had first rented and later bought the Renaissance Chateau des Milandes near Sarlat in the Dordogne, a region that was controlled by the Vichy puppet government, where she sheltered refugees, harbored a huge weapons stash, and hid numerous resistance fighters fleeing capture by the Nazis. This sounds like this almost sounds fictitious. It's so. This is very captivating. She also used her very real health problems to leave Axis control Europe to visit North Africa's French colonies under the pretext of a tour, with Apti posing as her ballet master and complete with her menagerie of animals, whom she refused to travel without. In Morocco, Josephine seduced royals and officials and managed to arrange forged Moroccan passports for Jews, including a member of the Rothschild family or the Rothschild family fleeing Europe. This woman was on a different level. Josephine adored children, but suffered a number of miscarriages that ultimately prevented her from having any. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, woman was married about three times before she was 19. I know she had to have some children, but I guess she didn't. She adopted 12 children of different nationalities and this seems like this all seems fictitious to me. This is just too. This is amazing. She adopted 12 children of different nationalities and religions, forming what she called her rainbow tribe. Oh my Josephine, your choice of words. Who were raised principally at Chateau des Milandes. She was often absent on tour or back in Paris performing, and things at the chateau were often chaotic. The chateau, in effect, had turned into a financial bottomless pit. In the decades after World War II, she became increasingly involved in the blossoming American civil rights movement. On one of her first trips back to New York after her Paris success, she was turned away from multiple segregated hotels and was appalled by the nation's continuing inequality and injustice. In 1951, she was invited back to America for a nightclub engagement in Miami, where she fought and won a public battle over desegregating the club's audience. See, now we're getting into politics. She was discriminated against in certain hotels, but yet there were other hotels, but I guess she wanted to stay in those particular hotels, just like the people at the lunch counter. They wanted that particular piece of pie. They didn't want to go nowhere and get no sweet potato pie. They wanted some pumpkin pie. Josephine became an active member of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People. Oh my God, Josephine. Well, she was a member. If she was a part of everything else, why wouldn't she do this? Oh man. Yeah, this is deeper than rap right here. That's real rap. This is on another level. This politics on another level. I don't understand it at all. As a decorated war hero who was bolstered by the racial equality she experienced in France, she was regarded as very controversial, and some black people feared her outspokenness, crusading efforts, and racy reputation would hurt her cause. In 1964, she spoke at the March on Washington at the side of Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., that's a lot, and wore her Free French uniform emblazoned with her Medal of the Legion d'Honneur. After Dr. King's assassination, his widow, Coretta Scott King, approached Josephine to ask if she would take her husband's place as leader of the civil rights movement. She declined. In 1968, Josephine lost her chateau. Josephine declined, man. She was just there for appearances, you know? She was just there for appearances. She lost her chateau. And this right here, right to the left, top left, is a picture of Josephine at Chateau de Milan's 1961. Wow. What a life. What life. Her friend, Grace Kelly, now Princess Grace, gave her the Villa Mary Vaughan in Roquebrune, Cap Martin, between Monaco and Menton, found schools for children, and paid Josephine to perform at her annual Red Cross Gala. Josephine mounted a return to the Paris stage, to pay off some of her debts, but suffered a brain hemorrhage shortly afterwards. Did that have to do with some of her pursuits, her previous pursuits? Was that brain hemorrhage done to her? I don't know. Can a brain hemorrhage be done to someone? She died in Paris in April 1975 and received a full Catholic funeral at L'Église de la Madeleine, attracting tens of thousands of mourners. She remains the only American-born woman to receive full French military honors at her funeral. After a family service arranged by her friend Princess Grace, she was interred at Monaco's Cimetière de Monaco. Today, the Chateau des Milans is a museum honoring Josephine's life and career, offering visitors a glimpse of the actress, musician, singer, spy, PR whiz, and performer, and houses dozens of her costumes and dresses. Wow. You mean to tell me an American Indian American gotta leave, an indigenous American gotta leave they soil portion to be honored like this? Because in their own soil portion, some of the people who look like them, some of the people who came from the soil portion they came from, make it hard for them to be honored? Because they in bed with the occupier? Sheesh. What a life Josephine lived. 2 years ago, a petition was launched in France to have Josephine honored with a Pantheon burial. The great temple of France that honors illustrious figures have made an outstanding contribution to the history of France. Wow. Outstanding. A coffin draped in the tricolor carrying soils from the U.S. A coffin draped in the tricolor, carrying soils from the U.S., France, and Monaco, was deposited inside the domed monument. As the coffin was borne along a street covered in red carpet, to the strains of Baker's hit song, J'ai deux amours, I have two loves, which she names as My Country and Paris. Wow. Wow. So we are going to go back. We are going to go back to, where are we? Where are we? We are going to resume at the article hyperallergic, and we are speaking of dignity of earth and sky overlooking the Missouri River. Missouri. Josephine Baker. What a life. American Indian. Outside of local South Dakota coverage, the statue has received relatively little attention. In a Twitter thread about the newly unveiled Martin Luther King Jr. sculpture in Boston, which drew controversy and criticism online, one user invoked dignity as a counterexample of public art that embodies true beauty. In conversations with hyperallergic residents and members of Native communities, the natives, the people who are termed today as Native American communities, revealed mixed feelings about the sculpture. Now, why would the quote Native quote communities have mixed feelings about a sculpture that was made to honor quote them end quote, and even used 3 females from their quote native quote community? Why could it be because the artist was just a conduit from what the soil called America wanted to say? Let's see. In conversations with hyperallergic residents and members of Native communities revealed mixed feelings about the sculpture, from joy and pride to disappointment that the work was not created by a Native artist, and fears that it may contribute to harmful stereotypes of indigenous women. Why would they say that? What harmful stereotypes of indigenous women? And where did that come from? I'm confused. Norman McKee, a retired business person and 2011 South Dakota Hall of Fame inductee, first approached Lamphere to build a large-scale female statue honoring the Native nations in 2014. Clementine Bordeaux, an enrolled member of the Rosebud Sioux Tribe and University of California in Los Angeles graduate student researching representations of indigenous American peoples in art and media, is excited that statue features a Native woman. She often stopped at the rest station in Chamberlain on drives back to Rapid City from Carthage College in Wisconsin, where she earned her bachelor's degree. Free, no doubt. Now she brings friends and visitors to see Dignity. Despite her awe at the artwork's scale and meaning, wait for it. Despite her awe at the artwork's scale and meanings, wait for it. However, Bordeaux is concerned about the implications of a statue crafted by a non native man. So they were given a gift, and now they got a problem with the gift that the art laureate made for them. On the one hand, she welcomes Native representation that doesn't focus on police brutality, resistance movements, or anti Indigenous violence. But she wonders why an Indigenous sculptor wasn't selected. You talking about somebody who unappreciative. But see, we're gonna see why they have a problem with this sculpture. How do we embrace representation when it's coming from a non-native person? These questions are further complicated when factoring in how non-native governments and people use stereotypical images of native women to enact harm. Manuel Well-Off Man, chief curator at the Institute of American Indian Arts, Museum of Contemporary Native Arts, told Hyperallergic that the sculptor emphasizes women's importance in Lakota and Dakota cultures, essential to document at a time when the issue of missing and murdered Indigenous women remains unresolved. His name is Manuel Well-Off Man. They trying to copy off Wu-Tang. For real, they trying to copy off Wu-Tang. Don't let them fool you, man. Know how we all got nicknames and whatnot? They trying to copy off Wu-Tang and whatnot. However, nostalgic portraits of native women created by non-native men reinforce stereotypes of indigenous cultures as frozen in time. What does that mean? They're saying that the sculpture reinforced stereotypes of indigenous cultures as frozen in time. Now, they could be talking about the fact that the actual sculpture is doesn't move and won't move. They can be talking about that kind of frozen as an inanimate object, or they could be talking about how the sculpture shows who the true, it's too close to how the true American Indian looked, looks, and always will look. And it doesn't show enough of the new creation, which is the people termed Native Americans today. Well-Off Man notes, citing Dignity's traditional Lakota dress. Yeah, we know you talking about the dress, right? Yeah, we know. Well-Off Man echoed, Well-Off Man echoed, ain't that something? Echoed Bordeaux's critique that the statue should have been created either entirely or collaboratively with the Lakota sculpture. You know, him being a laureate doesn't matter, especially since the sculpture has become a part of the state's marketing efforts. Tourism generates about $2 billion a year in revenue, according to the South Dakota Department of Tourism. An indigenous artist, she believes, would better represent contemporary indigenous culture by integrating their artistic practice with their knowledge of Native nations' current concerns and customs. An indigenous artist, she believes, would better represent contemporary today's indigenous culture, the new people chosen to be the indigenous people of this soil. Well, that's not how it works, Well-Off Man. That's not how it works. See, that artist, he didn't do it. This soil portion that we term as America did it. He didn't do. He was a conduit. He told you. We can have this statue, but the reality is Native people are being criminalized in a way that is very violent. What? Do you hear this? Do you hear this? Did they just start crying? They ain't even wait till they got in the car. They just start crying right here. And I'm surprised they ain't they ain't mess up the paper. They start crying. Did they just start crying? Did somebody get them a gift and they start crying? Not because they was happy, because they was unappreciative. Did they just say criminal? Did they just mention the word criminal? We talking about dignity of earth and sky overlooking the Missouri River. You know, Missouri, the place Josephine Baker, young Josephine came from. Bouted as Josephine. Savage. We can have this statue, but the reality is Native people are being criminalized in a way that is very violent, Bordeaux says. Alluding to the, ain't that funny, Bordeaux? French, Josephine Baker, honored by France. Bordeaux said, alluding to the overrepresentation of indigenous Americans in South Dakota. See, you see this? Yeah, this is, they call themselves Native Americans, indigenous Americans. You rarely hear them saying American Indians, right? That's not a coincidence. They know they're not the American Indians. So they can't say that. I know indigenous means that they were here from the beginning of time. They're the people of the soil. Not really. Not in the way they use it. In the way they use it, it's more of a business. We can have this statue, but the reality is Native peoples are being criminalized in a way that is very violent, Bordeaux said, alluding to the overrepresentation of indigenous Americans in South Dakota prisons and jails. U.S. Census data shows that Native Americans made up about 12% of the population in 2010. And according to the Prison Policy Initiative, they made up nearly 30% of the incarcerated population in the same year. Something that I find quite interesting is that from the same source in prisonpolicy.org, Black Americans, us properly American Indians in the U.S. population, let's just say Black Americans for the sake of prisonpolicy.org's statistical data, it says Black Americans, remember it says U.S. Census data shows that Native Americans, this is what Bordeaux is saying. I believe it's Bordeaux. This is the Native American Bordeaux lady. U.S. Census data shows that Native Americans make up, she was crying about criminalizing the way violence and all this. We talking about a statue of dignity of earth and sky, but she bring up criminalization and all this other stuff. And a non-native made the statue, but it's pretty, but they still ain't rocking with it. U.S. Census data shows that Native Americans make up about 12% of the population in 2010, and according to the Prison Policy Initiative, they make up nearly 30% of the incarcerated populations in the same year. Now, according to prisonpolicy.org, Black Americans in the U.S. population is about 13%. In prisoner jail is about 37%. Ain't that something? So it says Native Americans, 12%, incarcerated population, 30%. Black Americans, who are properly the American Indians, make up 13%. And in prisoner jail, it's 37%. Ain't that interesting? Very interesting. So, who are they speaking of with those statistics, with those records? In 2020, hoping to provide more context about the Lakota cultures, the Monument Honors sculptor Dale Lamphere decided to fund the creation of signage to be displayed at Dignity's base. Lamphere, we saw that signage earlier. Lamphere asked the local Center for American Indian Research and Native Studies, a nonprofit that provides educational resources about Indigenous Americans, to write and design materials. Craig Howe, director of the Center for American Indian Research and Native Studies, told Hyperallergic that he suggested 4 signs for Dignity, one contextualizing the sculpture and 3 featuring information about the Osseti Sakowin Confederacy, also known as the Great Sioux Nation. Lamphere had the signs made and installed. They were displayed for about a year before the South Dakota Department of Transportation ordered their removal. Why did the South Dakota Department of Transportation order their removal? According to reporting by the Lakota Times in July 2021, the DOT consulted the governor's office, the Tribal Relations Office, and the Department of Tourism about CAIRN's signs. Someone noticed the posters had grammatical mistakes that needed fixing. On October 2nd, 2021, the signs were temporarily displayed at Dignity for a ceremony. 10 days later, the Department of Transportation removed the placards and later put them into storage because they were lies. They couldn't have those lies out there. You know why? Because of the McKees. Because of the McKees. The McKees, they made it clear what they wanted. And do you think the McKees just, after they let Lamphere know exactly what they wanted or what they expected, do you think he's the only one who they let know what their expectations were? Probably not. They were probably connected with other people. You saw the associations that Mrs. McKee had. Okay. So it was clear what they wanted. The SD, South Dakota Department of Tourism, canceled a 2022 meeting to review and revise the signs. When the South Dakota Native Tourism Alliance, an ad hoc network of South Dakota tribal nations, as well as local, state, and federal partners, backed out of the consulting on the project. Since then, the department has called for volunteers to review and update the displays at the Chamberlain Welcome Center, but Howe says progress has been slow. Instead of correcting or replacing the existing signage, the department is doing all it can to prevent content-rich, historically accurate. Howe says, instead of correcting or replacing the existing signage, the department is doing all it can to prevent content-rich, historically accurate, and academically rigorous signage from being installed. See? Howe wants the lie to be placed in front of Dignity of Earth and Sky. They want the lie to be placed in front of there. It's all crumbling. The whole facade is crumbling. It's all fugazi. The Department of Transportation put the placard up that the McKees wanted up, that represents the expectations of the McKees. And you know what those expectations were? To honor the American Indians by way of honoring America, by gifting America something for everything that it has provided for them and their families. Bordeaux says, our only option is to buy into the tourist image for survival. Wow. Bordeaux, the Native American, said, our only option is to buy into the tourist image for survival. So the dignity of earth and sky, from her perspective, is a tourist image of what the Native American is. It's not a contemporary image of the Native American. They are completely opposed of dignity of earth and sky because it is not a representation of them. It is a representation of the American Indian that was, is, and always will be. And they don't see themselves in that. For Native Americans are a new creation. But this is dignity of earth and sky. This is what Lamphere built. He was a conduit. The American soil spoke to him. The creeks spoke to him. You come to America, and it's only you're gonna notice something about America. The people you term Black Americans, falsely African Americans, falsely colored, mulatto, Negro, niggas, the people you see, the niggas you see, the American Indians you see, you gonna notice something. We everywhere. And dignity of earth and sky, that's at nighttime right there. Y'all gotta go. Me too. That is dignity of earth and sky, and the Native Americans, they don't see themselves in that sculpture. I wonder why. Take a close look. Take a close look. Look, man, that woman can be any of y'all big sister, mother, grandmother, auntie. Come on, man. Be honest with you. The woman could be one of my mother's sisters, man. Easy, man. The woman could be my mother's sister, easy. How many of y'all got this woman right here in y'all family? He didn't take no picture of your family member. None of the females in your family to do this sculpture. He didn't use Lamphere didn't use none of those, but what he made came out to be, yeah. This is dignity of earth and sky. Yep. got an issue with that. I don't blame them. It is not a representation of them. But who are they? Do they ever answer the question who they are? But you have to all the time. CBS News. CBS New York. Bronze statue of woman turning heads in busy Times Square. A new statue is turning heads in Times Square. The 12-foot tall bronze sculpture. Bronze sculpture. See, look at this. I mean, it looks copper right now. Or bronze, right? Dignity of earth and sky in the nighttime. Absolutely beautiful. Shout out to Lamphere. He did his thing. In more recent times, bronze statue of woman turning heads in busy Times Square. Give me 1 second. CBS News. A new statue is turning heads in Times Square. The 12-foot tall bronze sculpture was unveiled last week. The piece, created by artist Thomas Price, depicts a young woman. So who is she? Whoever you want her to be. Me being a plus-size black woman, I was kind of looking at it like, I wonder what me as a small child would have thought looking at something like that. Representation, said Blessing Obese of Dallas. Is that a coincidence that the woman said me being a plus size woman and then her name is Blessing Obese? This is crazy. Of Dallas. It instantly stood out as powerful, said Brian Woodson of Kansas. So the piece, created by artist Thomas Price, it says, to have this work here is making a statement, potentially asking questions about what we value as a city, as a society, and hopefully it's a tribute to our shared humanity, Times Square Arts Director Gene Cooney explained. Again, Thomas Price created this piece. Who is Thomas Price? Thomas J. Price, London, 1981. He encompasses historic constructs with a newness that at first glance can go unnoticed, but that live in the public realm as silent totems for change. They're just explaining his style of art. The artist's presence continues in sonic work, Collective Palette number 1, 2020, an abstract bronze sculpture in which Price has cast the inside of his own ear. Although not immediately identifiable, the work seeks to capture the invisible space between the outside world and our innermost thoughts, calling into question how we translate what we experience in our perception of the world around us. Born in 1981, Price lives and works in London. He studied at Chelsea College of Art and the Royal College of Art, London, and has held solo exhibitions at institutions including the Power Plant, Toronto, Canada, the National Portrait Gallery, London, UK, Royal Academy of Arts, and a host of other accolades. I won't read them all. In 2024, Price was nominated for the fourth plinth or plinth. He was commissioned by Hackney Council to create the first permanent public sculptures to celebrate the contribution of the Windrush generation and their descendants in the UK, unveiled in June 2022. His solo presentation, Witness, in collaboration with the Studio Museum in Harlem, was on view in Marcus Garvey Park from 2021 to 2022. In the picture, we have the bronze statue. It says statue described as powerful and purposeful. Someone says it's a plus size woman. I'm a plus size man. I'm African American, or properly American. It's an African American woman. She is an American woman or American Indian woman statue, Woodson said. So just seeing another piece for me to stop and have a moment with was very powerful to me. So just seeing a piece for you to stop and have a moment with was powerful, I guess. Sounds good, I guess. Let's move on. I don't want to be too hard on them. It says, if you look at the eyes, it's looking straight at something. It's focused, it's purposeful, said Ruby Shirakal of Greenwich Village. The sculpture is proving to be a well-like juxtaposition among the more traditional statues in Times Square, which is the goal of placing artwork in such a prominent area, organizers say. Coming from a person of color or an American Indian background, or I don't know what they put person of color on so many people. It's not just us indigenous Americans or American Indians who are called people of color. Although whenever I hear person of color, I always think copper colored. Coming from a person of color background, it's really, how could someone say that about themselves? How can you describe yourself as that? Coming from a person of color background, it's really nice to see something come across as this everyday person, Shirakal said. It looks a little bit out of place, but I also think that's because where we are standing, it might not look out of place if everything in our surrounding reflected everyday life more to us. The piece will be on display until June 17th. This is very interesting. This woman's interpretation of this, she says, coming from a person of color background, it's really nice to see something come across as this everyday person, which the statue is. It really looks like just a everyday person, just a regular schmegler degler woman. You know what I mean? Like most of us are regular schmegler degler people. You know what I mean? And it's not wrong with being that, because we all come from the womb of a woman, right? So if being what we are is regular, then there is no perfection. Regular is the highest form of life and is a phenomenal creation. If we were created, I don't know, that I won't get into that. It says it looks a little out of place. Think about this. We're talking about the sculpture. We're talking about the bronze sculpture of the regular woman, the sister, the regular sister, just the sister that you see on the strip, on the street. It it looks out of place, right? But I also think that's because where we are standing, it might not look so out of place if everything in our surrounding reflected everyday life more to us. She looks out of place in the midst of all the artificial stuff, is what that says to me. She looks out of place amongst all the artificial stuff and all the foreigners. Because if she was in nature, if she was around only Americans, she would fit right in. She still fits in, but check it out. What a controversial statue says about race in 2025. A statue in Times Square depicting an ordinary black woman has held up a mirror to people's attitudes about race and celebration. June 2025. Alan Greenblatt. A statue of a black woman or an American Indian woman posing in Times Square. It's a sister statue of a 20-foot statue of a sister in Times Square. Smell me? This is from governing.com. Ain't we always being examined? Ain't we always being turned into statues? Is we bigger than life? I think we is life. I think we moving with life. We moving with nature still. A statue in Times Square has been derided online and by conservative commentators for celebrating a woman they see as less than inspiring. You hear that? A statue in Times Square has been derided online and by conservative commentators for celebrating a woman they see as less than inspiring. Now, don't get me wrong. I agree with some of the things that conservatives say. I agree with some of the things that that the people who are opposed to conservatives say. Everybody is, most of the time, because we're all essentially beings. We're all essentially the same type of things. Some of us, I don't want to get into how some are so demonic and this and all that, but because we're all essentially the same, meaning we all eat food, drink water, use the bathroom, things like this. So I agree with a lot that a lot of people say. I disagree with a lot that a lot of people say. But conservatives, one thing I learned about conservatives, they will definitely remove the veil. If they talk enough, they will remove the veil. They will show you exactly who they are. And I'm just speaking on conservatives because that's the word that I just read. A statue in Times Square has been derided online and by conservative commentators for celebrating a woman they see as less than inspiring. Others are delighted that an ordinary person is being depicted in such an important context. Rhonda Porter comes into New York occasionally to catch up on the shows. She had tickets to see Denzel Washington portray Othello, but made a point of stopping by Times Square first to get a look at the statue. The 12-foot bronze figure depicting a black woman or American Indian woman has drawn controversy. Commentators online and on the news have complained that it's monstrous. Commentators online and on the news have complained that it's monstrous. I mean, it is 20 feet tall, disrespectful, and unattractive. I told you, these people will pull up the veil. They will remove their veil and show you exactly who they is. an online petition calling for the statue to be taken down, contending it offered a distorted image of black women, or properly American Indian women, garnered 2,400 signatures. Wow. So people contended it offered a distorted image of black women, like the artist meant to depict every single so-called black woman in this one statue. How could he possibly do that? He's depicting one woman, not one woman in particular, even. No, not even a woman that anyone even knows. We don't even, he could have fashioned this statue after a particular woman, because when I see the statue, I'm damn near willing to bet money that I've seen this woman before, or I've seen this sister before. Garnered 2,400 signatures, but the piece known as Grounded in the Stars, Grounded in the Stars. And then earlier we had Dignity of Earth and Sky. Dignity of Earth and Sky. And this one is Grounded Earth in the Stars, Sky, by London-based artists. See, you think that's a coincidence? See, this is America, right? What you know about America? What you know about them engines? But the piece known as Grounded in the Stars by London-based artist Thomas J. Price, shout out to Thomas J. Price, was always meant to be a temporary installation and will be removed this Saturday. They getting all bent out of shape, jumping all outside they body, making petitions, showing just how they really feel about a nigga. And the thing is a temporary installation. Sheesh. Some have complained that the person depicted is anonymous and that a heroic figure would be more appropriate. How do they know she not a hero to somebody? Huh? How they know this woman ain't a hero to her sister, to her mother, to her father, to her cousin? There isn't anything wrong with the statue of a black woman, but pick one to honor, wrote one person on Facebook. Harriet Tubman, Rosa, man, I mean, Dan Calloway wrote a whole book about Harriet Tubman not necessarily being who you think she is. Rosa Parks, Sojourner Truth, Shirley Chisholm, the usual suspects. Any of them would have been a great choice. So let me ask you a question. You think that Harriet Tubman daughter, or Araminta Ross daughter that you don't know, or Rosa Parks daughter, or Sojourner Truth daughter, a little cousin, a niece, or Shirley Chisholm little cousin or a little sister, you think they ain't, you think they don't honor those people? You think they don't honor those family members? You don't think they're important? Any of them would have been a great choice. Instead, it's a rando fat woman with Walmart clothes. I mean, it's a bronze statue. I mean, if you really want to be technical about it, it's a bronze statue. It's an inanimate object. How do you know where her clothes came from? And are they really clothes? I mean, it is a bronze statue. So you mean to tell me that you were able to differentiate Walmart clothes from thrift store clothes or Target clothes or Marshall's clothes or TJ Maxx clothes or Macy's clothes. You did that. You were able to do that on a bronze statue. Let's shake it. Porter, who is black, was having none of it. Looking at the statue and taking pictures, she questions why anyone would read anything negative into it. Black women are not a monolith, right? Or American Indian are not a monolith, right? She says. She represents one portion of American women, and she's beautiful. She's absolutely beautiful. Price, the sculptor, says that showing an ordinary person is the whole point. An ordinary American sister. Y'all need to be, yeah, everybody who go by there, they need to be taking a picture of that statue. Everybody go by there and they need to put their hand on the statue, thank the statue. Because of that, because of the image, the person who is depicted, the American Indian woman, the sister who's depicted in there, made it possible for y'all to, any of you foreigners, to be here and to be comfortable. Not everyone agrees. This is what they want us to aspire to be. Fox News host Jesse Waters said about the Times Square piece. I told you. Fox News host, this is, I believe he's in conservative, okay? He gonna tell you, the veil comes off. He gonna tell you that, he gonna tell you exactly. Not everyone agrees. This is what they want us to aspire to be. Fox News host Jesse Waters said about the Times Square piece. If you work hard, you can be overweight and anonymous. This is coming from a man who would have you be more like him. On a Hollywood movie set that is termed Fox News, first of all, he's on a movie set. He has on his 3-4-17-piece suit, just like his Anglo-Saxon ancestors wore, in the 100,000-degree subtropical weather of America. He would have you be more like him. Somebody who has the suit on. So he's not showing his underdeveloped muscles, right? And I don't think he realizes, like the previous person, it's a bronze statue. And here we have the statue. I'm telling you, I'm almost willing to bet money that the sister right here is a real human. Like, he modeled this after a real sister. I've seen this female before. Either I seen her when I was a shorty, either I seen her when I was in elementary school, high school, maybe I seen her in my 20s or something like that. I seen her before. I might have seen it the other day, be honest with you. They got a real problem with this. Grounded in the stars, remember, dignity of earth and sky overlooking the Missouri River. Dignity of earth and sky. Grounded, how do you ground yourself? In the grounded earth, stars, sky. Dignity of earth and sky. Grounded in the stars. Towers over 2 nearby statues. One depicting the song and dance man George M. Cohen, and another showing Father Francis J. Duffy. That's what they would have you. Father, they want a pope They want a Catholic priest. They would rather have a Catholic priest for you to aspire to. Both of those statues have been in place for decades and will remain long after Saturday's removal of the temporary installation. White men, whether on horseback or standing stock still, make up the vast majority of public sculptures in the U.S. nationwide, according to Sierra Rooney, an art professor at the University of Wisconsin, La Crosse. There's nothing political about the statue, said a black man named Cedric, who was visiting Times Square from Virginia. Okay, Cedric. So he an American Indian. He a Virginia Indian. That's what some people may ascribe to it. It's just a black woman, or properly an American Indian woman, in Times Square. And there are lots of black women in Times Square. Right. Say it again. This is a moment when black people, among others, are being erased from American institutions. The teaching of black history has become controversial, with diversity, equity, and inclusion programs being banned in many states. And at the federal level, some artifacts have been removed from the National Museum of African American History and Culture after President Donald Trump issued an executive order demanding the museum take down exhibits that divide Americans based on race. I won't get into that because that is not what I like to speak about in this show, although I do have that paragraph. Yeah, I got a lot of opinions about that paragraph. And, don't put it in your mind that you know what I think about that paragraph that I just read, because I don't think you know, because I break every line down. Every line need to be broke down. This just not the show right now today for it. We've been talking about statues and whatnot. The statue in Times Square clearly speaks to this larger argument about whose story gets told and which Americans are celebrated. There's only one kind of American. Everyone else, listen to me. There are only Americans and foreigners, okay? There is no your nation hyphen Americans. No, that doesn't exist. There are only Americans. The only Americans there ever was, is, and will be. On Fox News, David Marcus complained that the Times Square piece took wokeness to new heights, asking why a statue of an angry black lady was being displayed in a city where a monument of President Theodore Roosevelt, flanked by African and Native American men, have been taken down 5 years ago. On Fox News, David Marcus, Fox News, I guess he's a conservative. David Marcus complained in his 7-piece suit that the Times Square piece took wokeness to new heights. Listen, asking why a statue of an angry black lady, keep that in mind. Let's move on. He said, angry black lady. Remember that. Becky, see, this make me think it's fake. This makes me question the validity of the entire article. I almost think it's artificially generated now, because now they put Becky, a white woman. See, they playing now, man. They playing now, man. This is like, let's move on. Let's act like it's for real. Becky, a white woman from Dallas visiting New York with her family, was delighted when she came across it, impressed as others were by the figure's self-possession. Wow. impressed as others were by the figure's self-possession. It was unexpected and it's beautiful, she says. It's beautiful. It shows how powerful she is. She looks very determined. Listen how she says it's beautiful. She says it shows how powerful she is. She looks very determined. This article, Alan Greenblatt, is the editor of Governing. She says it shows how powerful she is. The sister, how powerful the sister is. She looks very determined. But the Fox guy, David Marcus, said asking why a statue of an angry black lady was being displayed. Angry. Let's take a look. So here is the picture of the sister. She said the Becky says powerful. She looks determined. And ain't that something? The look that she has, how she's standing, again, is regular schmegula degula for the American Indian woman. And it's a regular look from my perspective. But to others, it's powerful. This tells you something about how people see you as an American, what they really see about you, regardless of all the fluff, regardless of all the propaganda that's put out there. Remember the conservative from Fox, the one wearing the 20-piece suit in 1,000-degree weather. He said that this statue, this bronze statue of the sister, the American sister, was why they put a statue of an angry black woman there? Huh? He called this an angry black woman. Do she look angry to you? The statue don't look angry to me. Maybe he didn't even need to see the statue to think that American Sisters is angry. Who knows? Do the right thing.